Hi guys, and welcome back to History Help for You. Today we're going to be going through Elizabeth I's sort of rebellions and plots. I've done this now instead of continuing on with foreign policy because I just feel that there's a lot of sort of issues like rebellion and plots that interlink with foreign policy. So the next bit we're going to be looking at within Spain and kind of a lot of stuff that happens with the rebellions and the plots kind of link to it. So as you'll see, you have quite a lot of issues with people, questioning Elizabeth for being a woman and sort of her ability to rule. But you also have quite a religious problem. As we'll see, the Pope excommunicates her in 1570, and then we'll also see a bit more than sort of like Puritan and like the Jesuit opposition um, when we do religion. So one of your sort of big sort of things that ignites rebellion is your arrival of Mary Queen of Scots in England in 1568. There was a lot of issues in Scotland at the time. Pretty much Scotland had just become Protestant, and were kind of content with being Protestant. That was through the Lords of Congregation, and obviously Mary had been in France with her husband. Her husband then died, and she was now returning to Scotland to be queen. But as a Catholic, that kind of caused a lot of issues with a Protestant country and a Catholic leader, and a lot of people at the time, especially someone like John Knox, who was kind of like your sort of main Protestant leader. They were they kind of believed that Mary returning would sort of mess with the Protestantism that they'd established. Also, Mary Queen of Scots had quite a good claim to the throne, and with her being a Catholic, a lot of people within England who were Catholics wanted to get rid of Elizabeth and put Mary Queen of Scots on the throne. This we can see in the Northern Rebellion. This was in 1569 by Northumberland and Westmoreland, and they wanted to restore Catholicism and put Mary Queen of Scots on the throne. This was, they wanted to help to secure the succession and essentially get rid of Protestantism and put it back to Catholicism as it was. And yeah, because of kind of how Elizabeth treated the Catholics after, I think quite a lot of were executed. This then led to the Pope excommunicating her in 1570. Because she's going against Catholics because they're going against her. You also have the Rodolphi plot in 1571. This is like your kind of first main plot. And this was an attempt to have a Spanish invasion, so for the Spaniards to invade England, and then Philip and Mary to get married and rule. And this was by Roberto Rodolphi. Not really sure why he's that important. He was the guy who really came up with it, but yeah. But I mean, it was then inevitably uncovered by Walsingham's spy network. He then also had the Throckmorton plot in 1583. It was strange because there was a lot of sort of marriage negotiations with England at the time to kind of marry the Duke of Alençon, and this kind of proposed having the Duke of Alençon to marry Mary Queen of Scots and invade England with backing from the Pope and Spain. So in reality, if this were to happen, this would probably be the most devastating for England, having an invasion from the French with Spanish backing and papal backing. It'd be devastating. And there was also direct sort of involvement by the Spanish ambassador to England, that being Mendoza, who was then later expelled. And it also then led to the Bond of Association in 1584, which we'll look at on the slide after. And this was kind of something that kind of the people around her, like the councillors, kind of swore that they would defend Elizabeth from like any sort of threats at all. We've got two more plots. We've got the Parry plot and the Babington plot. The Parry plot is not as kind of important as Babington. This was literally just a plot to assassinate Elizabeth, and again put Mary Queen of Scots on the throne. You now kind of see now why Mary Queen of Scots coming to England was so influential. A lot of the plots kind of just went to kill Elizabeth and put Mary Queen of Scots on the throne. So this was between Anthony Babington, and there was direct involvement from Mary Queen of Scots. So yeah, this was important because it proved Mary Queen of Scots' willingness to kind of be involved in these plots, and this then led to the treason charges that were put upon her. Yeah, this is just a bit of a breakdown of what kind of Walsingham's intelligence network looked like. As we shall see when we do religion properly, we'll be looking at the kind of acts against the Jesuits, so many priests and the recusants, and this was kind of to prevent any more kind of plots by kind of having a harsher punishment against Catholics, I guess you could say. A lot of whom had kind of been expelled out of England in the first place. And yeah, as I mentioned, the Bond of Association pledged to protect the Queen and hunt down anyone who sort of pretended to hunt down any pretender to the throne, like in Henry VII's reign, like Lambertson and Pope and Warbeck. And yeah, I mean the entire execution of Mary Queen of Scots gave Spain a reason for war. And it also kind of helped to establish Elizabeth more as a Protestant defender of England, which we will look at a lot more when we do foreign policy, especially looking at Spain. This is kind of steps it took for Mary Queen of Scots to be executed, found guilty of treason. Elizabeth initially did not want to execute Mary Queen of Scots. Obviously, it's her cousin, it's a fellow queen, and by the time that Elizabeth does execute Mary Queen of Scots, it kind of gives the okay to kill an anointed queen, which is directly going against the great chain of being, the divine right of kings, and kind of justified any kind of plot against Elizabeth wanting to kill her off. So here are some key takeaways. Obviously, the nature of the threats, mostly religious in nature, because of Mary Queen of Scots' arrival. These were mostly all intercepted by Walsingham's spy service. Again, him being such a great counsellor for Elizabeth because of him being the spy master general. And then also, when we look at foreign policy in our next lesson, we'll kind of be looking at how the execution of Mary Queen of Scots has such a big impact on her foreign policy, as it shifts kind of more from France and Scotland to Spain from like the 1580s, just because Philip's constantly at neck and constantly trying to cause issues. But yeah, and then we'll obviously see the Armada in 88. But that is it for this one, guys, and I shall see you in the next one where we do some more foreign policy, especially about Spain and the Netherlands.